Hey, Godfather of Anxiety here. Just wanted to do a video. I'm going to entitle this video, Don't Let Your Intrusive Thoughts Make You Question Your Identity. I've done 2 other videos about intrusive thought OCD, and I feel as though this is a really good video to do because obviously intrusive thoughts can affect people whether they have obsessive compulsive disorder, ADHD, or just generalized anxiety disorder. And how we react to them is really going to have be a large determining factor as to how they affect us and how we recover from them. So just really quickly, this isn't going to be a long, in-depth video, but I did want to touch on what intrusive thoughts are to those of you who are either new to the channel or maybe have never experienced them. So what it's going to be is it's going to be extremely disturbing and scary thoughts playing on a loop in your mind. So this isn't going to be consciously done or deliberate. It's going to be just playing on a loop, just like there's a movie playing kind of in the background. And it's going to be the things that bother you the most, right? It could have to do with violence. It could have to do with sex. It could have to do with germs or dirt. And these thoughts are as bad as your mind can make them. So that's why this can be so challenging to endure. And I know for the people out there with obsessive compulsive disorder, they deal with this on a regular basis, and it's incredibly difficult. I had this for about 1.5 years, and it was some of the toughest it was one of the toughest things I've ever dealt with, having intrusive thought OCD. So now, why does your mind do this, right? Just real quickly, I'm going to cover this. Well, they don't know for sure. But obviously, they know there's a correlation here between anxiety and the fight or flight response. And one theory is, and this to me has some merit, that it's just your mind is determined in an effort to keep you alive and protect you. Your anxious mind is determined to keep you anxious. So in turn, it keeps your adrenaline dumping and it keeps you, in that state of fight or flight. So, according to your mind, it's thinking, yeah, you're in a survival situation and I'm keeping you in survival mode. This is one theory, and it would explain why our minds do this and why such effort is made by our minds subconsciously to keep us in fight or flight, to keep us in the most disturbed state we can be in. And, that your mind is very effective here, right? Our minds know what bothers us the most. So it's, very capable of shooting image after image, disturbing image on a loop so that we stay in this heightened state of anxiety. So that's what this is. They believe maybe that's what why this happens. I can tell you from personal experience, words don't do this, and don't do intrusive thoughts justice. They are horrible. They make you, as I mentioned in the title of the video, they can make you question your identity. They can make you question whether or not you're a good person. This is something that you almost feel betrayed by your mind when this happens. You feel like, because you're not consciously having these thoughts, and that's why some people, when they start having these, they They feel like they're losing their mind. They feel like they're possessed. They feel all these crazy things because these are good people, loving people, caring people. And all of a sudden, these horrible intrusive thoughts are playing on a loop. And, you know, another reason why I wanted to make this short video is because to certain demographics, to certain groups of people, they're going to be especially vulnerable to intrusive thoughts. So I'm going to give three particular groups of people that are going to be super vulnerable because of their circumstances. First, children. When children get these intrusive thoughts, and you know, I am familiar with people that have gotten these intrusive thoughts basically at 4 and 5 years old. And this is so challenging because let's look at the circumstances. Are you going to tell your parents that you're having some horrible thought? Like you're worried you're going to kill your little brother, or you're worried you're going to, you know, do something disgusting in some other way? Are you going to feel comfortable talking to your parent about this? And if you do bring it up to your parent might be alarmed. You know, they might be questioning, what's wrong with him, you know? And so it puts children in an especially difficult situation. Children who have intrusive thoughts are really in a difficult spot. But, you know, I can encourage you guys, a lot of you guys watching have anxiety spectrum disorders. Don't be surprised if your children ask you questions that seem alarming, because they very easily could end up having intrusive thoughts at a young age. So we don't want to overreact to them. But, you know, and then also because they don't have anything to compare it to, that makes it especially insidious, the idea that perhaps they feel as though this is who they really are. And it can make them question whether or not they're a violent person. That can make them question their sexuality. It really can throw a monkey wrench in your child's development. So this is an especially vulnerable time to have intrusive thoughts. I personally know somebody who, you know, for their teenage years thought they were actually a non-active serial killer. A serial killer who was choosing not to act, you know, on their thoughts. And of course, this person is nothing like that, and they just had intrusive thought OCD. And of course, who do you tell about it? You know, so children especially are in a vulnerable situation. Another very vulnerable group that's in a very difficult situation are postpartum women. So women who have just, born a child. And this is, I mean, think about this. You realize you're basically been completely entrusted with a whole nother life, right? So even if you just had underlying anxiety, this is daunting, right? But now let's throw in some intrusive thoughts. And here's some of the thoughts that people have when they have postpartum. And again, postpartum it looks as though postpartum, it may have something to do with serotonin levels and an a hyperactive amygdala, but it definitely has to do with hormones as well. And that's why it comes on so strong, and it can happen to people who've never had anxiety or depression before. So that makes this extremely alarming if this is the first time it's ever happened to you. These are some of the intrusive thoughts that postpartum women have. Thoughts of hurting their baby, dropping them, drowning them, suffocating them. Thoughts of harming themselves. Thoughts about their ability to care for their baby, like, you know, they're not capable, they're a bad mother. Thoughts of, you know, that their family would be better off without them. And then maybe they just see images of their baby dying over and over again. Now imagine that. imagine that you've never had, a diagnosable anxiety condition, and you get hit with this right after you give birth to your child. This is a bear to deal with. And hopefully, by doing a video like this, I realize that only a little over 30% of my viewers are female. But if someone has recently given birth and they seem distant or detached or they not like themselves, guys, it's worth it to talk to them about this. If you are one of those people having thoughts like this right after you've given birth, you're not the devil. You just are having postpartum. And there are all kinds of things, treatment options, as well as, getting help with taking care of the infant while you're going through this. This isn't something you should have to deal with alone. And intrusive thoughts at this time, I mean, try to empathize with that. You hear this blessing that's just been given to you, right? You probably wanted this your whole life, and you've been entrusted with this gift, and now all of a sudden you're worried about all these horrible thoughts that I just mentioned. So that's an especially vulnerable group as well. And then the third group that's especially vulnerable is just people who are having intrusive thoughts for the first time. Neurotypical people will have intrusive thought OCD. They will. But you are not OCD, but intrusive thoughts. So for instance, this happens to a lot of people, and they never end up getting intrusive thought OCD or intrusive thoughts that are uncontrollable. Maybe you go up to a high place, whether you're on the top of a building or whatever it might be, and you get this fleeting thought of, I'm gonna jump. I could just jump. Or maybe someone's next to you and you think, how about if I push them? And it's a split second thing. You never think about it again. You're like, boy, and it doesn't have to be that particular scenario. That's just the first one that came to mind. So neurotypical people get them. But as far as playing on a loop like that, the first time I ever experienced this, I was 31 years old. So I'd never had this happen before. And the only reason I believe the only reason I didn't commit myself to a mental institution is because, fortunately, I had someone very close to me who dealt with this, who dealt with intrusive thoughts. Because otherwise, I don't think I would have trusted myself around my family. I think I would have had to commit myself to some type of institution. Just in my own mind, I would have felt like I would have had to do this to protect my family. But fortunately, I did know what was going on. It still was horrible. And it still took about 1.5 years to subside. And, guys, I'm telling you, if you've experienced this, you wouldn't wish it on the devil himself. It's awful. It is awful. And, like I'm talking about with the title of the video, it makes you question, whether you're a child, you're questioning things about whether you're evil or you question your sexuality. Whether you're a new mother, you're questioning whether or not you're a good parent or even way worse than that, right? And then you get these thoughts out of the blue and they're playing on a loop and then I'm going to get to what you want to do. And I've covered this in other videos, but I'm just going to go through really quickly and give you guys some tips on how you can get these thoughts to subside right away. And again, they're still probably going to play. I'm not going to be able to give you something that's going to make them stop immediately. Sometimes medication is very beneficial when it comes to this, and other times not so much. But there are some, really well-studied things and things that I can tell you that work for me really well, because I would be a complete liar if I didn't tell you guys that I still get intrusive thoughts. I do. But right away, I go through a few steps, and it keeps me from perseverating on them, and it keeps them from having any power over my life or to the point where I'm questioning my identity. And that's so important, right? We don't want to, my channel, I always stress, you don't want to waste time. You will waste a lot of your life questioning who you are you good, all kinds of things. If you allow, if you actually entertain intrusive thoughts. There's no reason to entertain these thoughts. These thoughts, it's very deliberate. Again, the theory that I mentioned seems very logical to me, because it seems like your mind's determined to keep you anxious. And that makes perfect sense. Keep you in fight or flight because it thinks it's keeping you alive, and really it's torturing you. So in order for this not to become something where you're questioning your identity, here's what you want to do. First thing you want to do if you have these thoughts, label them OCD. These are not your thoughts. These are not some deep, dark, hidden desire, hidden evil inside you. It's not. And you really quickly, this is how you know. This is how you absolutely 100% know this. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. These thoughts are bothering you. They're bothering you horribly. They're probably making you nauseous. Guys, if the thoughts are bothering you, this is not who you are. When people who really do these things that we're thinking of, they don't spend all day being sick about them. They look for an opportunity and they do them. And if there's not going to be any consequences, they'll just act on these thoughts and they don't feel guilty about it. So the fact that you have these thoughts playing on a loop and they're just horrifying you, that proves these thoughts aren't yours. They do originate from your mind, but it's not your desires, it's not your wants. So the first thing you want to do, label it OCD. That's the first thing. The next thing, and this is in almost every, whether it's generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, all three of these things, this is so important, and I want you guys to take note of this. Let the thoughts play. Just like with a panic attack, when I told you guys, let them happen, don't fight them. Let the intrusive thoughts play. Don't try to fight them or block them out. When you do this, it will intensify them. I promise you guys, my initial thing is always to fight. Like I started having panic attacks. Oh, I'm not dying. I'm the guy that gets up and runs when he knocks the wind out of himself because, I'm not going out like that. Well, I tried doing that with panic attacks. It just prolonged the panic attacks and made them way worse. I did that also when I first had intrusive thought OCD. I would fight these intrusive thoughts, and my goodness, it's amazing what your mind will come up with. The loop will get faster and worse, more. The thoughts will get darker, and it's terrible. So the first two things I'm telling you guys is label it as OCD, and just let it play. You don't want to react / overreact to intrusive thoughts. Just let them play. You've already labeled them as OCD. You know it's not some secret desire, so just let it play. And then after that, the next step will probably be exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. Exposure therapy is going to be, okay, so let's say you're worried you're going to hurt maybe a specific loved one. Well, you would want to spend time with them. You would want to spend time with them in, and again, you don't do this all at once. You don't have to spend, all day with one person who you're worried for some reason you're going to do something terrible to. But every time whether you expose yourself to that, or if you say it's germs, you'll see how exposure therapy works, guys. You're scared of germs. Some of these guys, they'll lay a towel on their hand, or you're worried you're going to hurt somebody and they'll put a pair of scissors in your hand and have the person be right there. Now, this is stuff that you would do supervised, okay? But what this will do is it'll prove to your logical mind that these are not desires. That's why exposure therapy works so well with this, because it proves to your logical mind that you don't really want to do this. You'll be dripping and pouring sweat. It will be uncomfortable, but the longer you do it, and the more frequently you do it, pretty soon, if you combine all of these techniques, these thoughts will start to dissipate and they'll start to fade and they'll have way less power over you. You aren't going to be questioning your identity. You're not going to be questioning whether or not you're a good person. Some other things. So basically, those are the things. Medication may work. That's something, again, you want to, with any of these conditions, guys, get with a mental health professional, work on a plan, and, follow their advice. Make sure you find a good one. If for some reason something doesn't seem right, remember, it's not like marriage. This isn't till death do us part. If you need to try a different, whether it's a psychiatrist or therapist, then go ahead and do that. But yeah, so you want to do this. Then the other thing, super huge. I always mention the big three: sleep, exercise, and diet. Sleep with OCD is paramount. It is. Everybody I know with OCD, including myself, with intrusive thoughts, they will get exponentially worse if you are deprived of sleep. So right away, that's something that you should try to work on. If you know you're not getting sleep, that's one of the first things to attack. Exercise is also good, and staying busy. Just like I always tell you guys, you want to stay busy. That'll keep you from having time to let these thoughts just, if something else demands your attention, even if it's still playing on a loop, you'll be able to pay less attention to it, and that's a really good thing. So that's about all I wanted to cover in this video. I just feel like, intrusive thoughts, they're one of those things, again, it makes you question who you are, if you're a good person, and it'll stop your life in its tracks if you don't know what you're dealing with. And my channel is all about educating people on what they're dealing with and then getting the help they need so they can move on with their life, so that they don't let essentially a hyperactive amygdala or, some hormone imbalances after giving birth. You don't let that, stop your life in its tracks and basically, ruin your life for a period of time. Or, these consequences can get, really bad, obviously, as we've mentioned here. So, but that's about all I wanted to cover. Thank you guys so much for the engagement with the channel. I really appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. Let anyone you know who's experiencing any of these things that we're talking about, whether it's generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, have them take a look at some of the videos. I've got quite a catalog now of videos on the channel that deal with a variety of subjects, and I really feel like they could be beneficial in at least educating somebody as to, okay, that's what's going on with me. I'm not going crazy. And also pushing them to get the help they need, because especially guys, but everyone, nobody wants to go to see either a psychiatrist or a therapist. It's, you're weak, you can't deal, you can't hang. Guys, that's nonsense. You don't want to waste your life with things that can be solved relatively quickly if they're treated effectively. So thank you so much, and until my next video, take care.